Hey mathematics learners, welcome to Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. And welcome to the first official grade 11 mathematics lesson, right? And in the next upcoming video tutorials that I'm going to be uploading for you guys, we are going to be focusing on equations and inequalities, right? So in this first video tutorial, guys, we're going to be focusing on how we can solve an equation by completing a square, right? In the next video tutorials, we're going to be talking about how you solve equations by using the quadratic formula, and we're also going to be talking about the nature of roots. Okay, so that's what you guys are currently doing in school, I know. So if you know that you're struggling with completing the square, you're not really understanding the steps that you're supposed to follow, please make sure that you watch these video tutorials that I'm going to be uploading for you guys on how you're supposed to complete the square. And if you're also just confused about how you're supposed to use the quadratic formula, right, please also watch the video tutorials. My thumbnails are going to be very clear in terms of which mathematics I'm dealing with. I'm going to be clear with the grade, I'm going to be clear with the type of mathematics, and I'm going to be clear with the topic that I'm covering in the video tutorial. Okay, I'm going to be showing you guys how we can solve equations by completing the square. I'm going to be showing you guys how we can solve equations by using the quadratic formula, and we're going to be talking about the nature of roots. Okay, and what exactly are we talking about when we're talking about nature of roots? We're going to be discussing that. So please, guys, okay, make sure that you have your notification bells turned on, right? Please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, and also please make sure that you give all of these video tutorials a huge thumbs up, guys. Okay, that will really help the channel grow, and it will help the videos to reach more learners that want to better their mathematics marks. I'm going to take you guys through your grade 11. I'm going to take you guys through your grade 12. Please stick with me, right? It's going to be fun, okay? Please make sure that you're consistent. Please make sure that you are practicing. Please make sure that you do all the past papers that I upload on the channel, and let's just enjoy our grade 11 and our grade 12 mathematics journey. All right, so without any further ado, guys, let's get started with today's video tutorial. Like I mentioned, guys, in today's video tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how we basically go about solving an equation by completing the square. Okay, I'm going to start off by showing you guys the steps that we need to follow to help us complete the square, right? After I've basically shown you guys the steps that we need to follow, we're going to apply those steps practically to this given equation. Okay, so let's get started. All right. So when you're basically completing the square, guys, let's say, for example, you are given a quadratic equation that's in the form of x squared plus bx minus c, which is equal to 0, okay? Before we can even get started with completing the square, guys, you need to ensure that this equation, right, the constant, right, has been moved to the other side of the equation so that we have the terms that have the variables on their own. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Okay, we're going to basically start off by moving your constant to the right hand side. So in this case, we're going to have your x squared plus bx, which is equal to positive c. Okay, so now once your equation is in this form, then now we can start off with basically completing the square. So you need to ensure that your constant is on one side and your terms that have the variables, okay, or your variable x, right, are on one side. Okay, so that's the first thing. Okay, now the second step that we basically need to do, right, we're going to focus on the coefficient of our x. What is the coefficient of the x, right? The coefficient of our x is positive b. Okay, so we're going to take that positive b, right, and we are going to divide it by 2 and square it. Okay, and this value is the value that we're going to add to the left hand side and the value that we're going to add to the right hand side of this equation. Okay, so let's do that now. we're going to take now your x squared. We're going to rewrite x squared plus bx. Then we're going to add, I'm going to put that in red, plus, right, your positive b over 2 all squared, right, equals 2. We're going to rewrite the c, and we're going to add your positive b over 2 all squared. Okay, so we've added this value, right, to the left hand side. We've added this value, right, to the right hand side. Okay, once we've basically added your positive b divided by 2 all squared to your left hand side and to your right hand side, we want to basically ensure that now our equation, right, on the left hand side is in the form of x, right? Then we're going to look at the sign that we have here. Okay, this sign is a positive, so it's going to be a positive. Then we're going to rewrite this value that's inside your bracket. So it's b over 2. So it's positive b over 2. Then we're going to square that, right? And that is going to be equal to your values on the right hand side. So basically what we're doing on the left hand side, we are factorizing your left hand side. Okay, so that's just us factorizing your left hand side, and your left hand side factorized, right, in this case is your x plus b over 2 all squared, right? Then on your right hand side you'll be left with your c plus, right, positive b over 2 all squared. Guys, I'm putting that positive b there on purpose because I want you guys to see a very important point. Okay, so here, guys, we've basically now factorized your left hand side so that we now have our left hand side in the form of x plus b over 2 all squared. Okay, this sign here depends on whatever value you will have, right, inside your brackets. If it's a positive b over 2, you have a positive b over 2. If it's a negative something, we'll have a negative something here as well. Okay, so this sign here determines the sign that you'll put on basically this bracket. Okay, and then from here, all that we need to do, we're now solving this equation. Okay, we're going to solve this equation by using the square root method. Okay, we want to square the left hand side, we're going to square the right hand side. So if we square the left hand side, we are basically going to square the left hand side, we are going to square the right hand side. If you square the left hand side, what am I going to be left with on the left hand side? Okay, if you square the left hand side, guys, we already know that. Okay, this 2 cancels, that square root cancels, and you'll just be left with your x plus b over 2. Okay, you should know why the square root and the 2 is canceling, guys, right? In the first I think 2 weeks ago, you guys were basically discussing your fractional exponents and roots, right? And you basically discussed this rule, the power root definition, right? That a to the power of m divided by n is the same as saying the nth root of a to the power of n. Okay, so that's basically what's going on here. Okay, for example, if I give you a to the power of 2 is equal to 4, and I said solve this equation, find out what is a equal to, right? So if we basically square root the left hand side, right, if I square root the left hand side, right, you square root the right hand side, right? Okay, this basically means that I can also write this as a to the power of 2, okay, all raised to the power of a half. So this square root is the same as just raising it to the power of a half, right? Which is equal to, that's also the same as saying 4 to the power of a half. Okay, and therefore if you apply the power rule, okay, and you basically multiply 2 by a half, you'll just have a to the power of 1 is equal to 4 to the power of a half is 2. Okay, so you can even check in your calculator. If you just say the square root of 4, you'll get 2. If you say 4 to the power of a half, right, you will get 2. Okay, so that's basically what's happening there. That is why that square root is basically canceling and we're not seeing that anymore. Okay, so that's what you guys were discussing in school a couple of weeks ago. Okay, right. So now what do we need to do now? Okay, all that we need to do now, we need to deal with the right hand side, right? And you've got the square root of c plus, right? Plus b over 2 divided by 2. I'm keeping this like this, guys, because we're working with unknowns. So we can't simplify that any further, okay? So then from there, guys, right, if you want to solve an equation, we want to solve for something. We're trying to solve for x, right? So we want our x to be on its own, okay? So in this case, right, therefore, our x is equal to your positive b over 2 is going to move to the right hand side. It's going to be negative b over 2. Therefore, because you are square rooting that, it's plus or minus, right? The square root of c plus positive b over 2 all squared. Okay, so then that's basically what we are dealing with. That's how we are going to go about solving our equation by completing the square. The first thing we need to ensure that our equation is in the form of x squared plus bx plus c. Then from there, we're going to add. Then from there, we're going to focus on the coefficient of our x, right? We're going to take that coefficient of our x, right? Okay. Then we're going to divide by 2 and we're going to square it. And we're going to add that value that we've now obtained from the left-hand side and add that value to the right-hand side, right? And then from there, we're going to go about and solve. I think it gets a bit easier from there. But I mean, I think this can be a bit tedious. This can be a bit confusing to someone. So let's look at this practically, okay? Because here I was just giving you guys the steps that we're going to be following, right? To basically get to our answer, okay? But let's look at this practically. What am I actually doing here? Let's apply this concept to this example, okay? So we're given an example here, x squared minus 6x minus 5 is equal to 0. And we want to solve this equation, right? Solving means that we want to find out what is x. We want to solve for x by completing the square, okay? So in this case, we already have a problem. Our equation is not in the form of x squared plus bx is equal to c, okay? So now we already see that we need to move this constant, right, of negative 5 to the right hand side, okay, before we start off with completing the square. So let's do that. We're going to have x squared, okay, minus 6x, which is equal to positive 5, okay, so it's just going to be 5. All right, so now we can start off our completing the square. Okay, then what is the next thing that we need to focus on? We need to focus on the coefficient of our x, and the coefficient for x is negative 6. Okay, so we're going to look at that negative 6. What are we going to do with that negative 6? We're going to take that negative 6, we're going to divide it by 2, and we are going to square it. Okay, then we're going to basically take this value, okay, and we are going to add it to the left hand side, and we're going to add it to the right hand side. Okay, so let's basically do that. We're going to take your x squared minus 6x. Right now we're just rewriting what we have on our left hand side, right? And then we are going to add, okay, plus, right, this value here. Okay, so we're going to plus the negative 6 divided by 2 all squared equal to, we're going to rewrite this 5, and we are going to plus, okay, negative 6 divided by 2 all squared. Okay, so we still fine here. Everything still makes sense. Okay, then now what do we want to do, guys? We want to basically now factorize your left hand side, okay, so that our left hand side, remember guys, I said that it needs to be in the form of x plus b over 2 all squared. Remember, someone now might be a bit confused when it comes to the signs. But remember, okay, we're just going to rewrite that x. When I write that x the way that it is, this sign, after taking your negative 6 divided by 2, what do you get? Negative 6 divided by 2 gives us a negative 3. So that is the sign that we are going to basically write, okay? So after basically now simplifying this inner brackets, okay, that is the sign that you're going to put on your left hand side when you factorize it further. Okay, so let me actually write it down. Let me actually simplify this further so that you guys see what's happening, so that you guys are not confused. So let me just do that. Okay, so we're gonna have, we've got x squared. Okay, we've got minus 6x. Okay, so I'm gonna basically rewrite what I've basically written here at the top, right? But I'm just gonna simplify this bracket so you guys see what's happening. Okay, so it's gonna be minus 6x plus, right? Okay, if it's minus 6 divided by 2, I'm gonna keep it as a negative 3. Okay, all squared, so that you see what's happening, which is equal to 5 plus, right? I'm just gonna keep this as a negative 3 all squared. I'm just simplifying there. Okay, I'm gonna highlight this inner bracket, what's inside this bracket here, so that you now see what's happening. Okay, so now remember, on the left hand side, guys, we want it to be in the form of x plus or minus b over 2 all squared. Okay, so in this case, we're gonna just take your x, right? And then this is what we're gonna focus on. This is a negative 3, so we're gonna write it as negative 3 all squared, right? Which is equal to 5 plus negative 3 all squared. So that is why here in this question, I basically kept this positive, because it shows you that this is the sign that you're going to basically have inside your brackets there when you're factorizing. Okay, so that's basically why I kept it there, so you guys see what's happening. And then from here, guys, it's super easy. All that we need to do, guys, we need to apply the square root method. Okay, so if you're gonna square root the left hand side, so if I square root my left hand side, I want to square root my left hand side. Okay, I want to square root my right hand side, right? In this example, we can actually simplify our right hand side because we're just dealing with constants, okay, actual values and not unknowns. So we can actually just simplify that further. We're not going to stress our lives like the way we did in when I was just explaining to you guys the steps. Okay, so in this case, right, if you square root the left hand side, what will you be left with? Okay, your square root cancels, right? The 2 cancels, right? And you'll be left with, right, x minus 3 is equal to, let's simplify what's under the square root. Okay, so it's 5 plus, right, negative 3 all squared. Okay, so negative 3 all squared, guys, I'm just gonna write this here. Negative 3 all squared is equal to 9. Okay, if you square a negative number, it's always a positive. Okay, so it's just gonna be the square root of 5 plus 9. Okay, right? And then if you just punch it into your calculator, 5 plus 9, what do you get, right? So it's going to be x minus 3, which is equal to the square root of 14, right? And then from here, guys, we want to solve this equation, right? We want our x to be on its own. Okay, so in this case, we want to move the negative 3 to the right hand side. Therefore, your x is going to be equal to, remember, we basically square rooting your 14. So the answer that you're going to get, okay, it's going to be a plus or minus, okay, 14. It's not just going to be square root of 14, but it's actually plus or minus 14, or minus the square root of 14 plus 3, because your 3 has now moved to the right hand side, right? Or you can just also write this as x is equal to, you're going to start off with that 3 plus or minus the square root of 14. Okay, so I forgot to basically mention here that you need to leave your answer in the simplest surd form. Okay, so that is basically how we basically need to go about solving a quadratic equation by completing the square. Okay, so I hope I didn't lose anyone. I hope you guys basically understood this question. I hope you guys basically understood how we need to go about solving an equation by solving a quadratic equation by completing the square. So in the next video tutorial, guys, I'm going to basically have a look at this example where we're still solving a quadratic equation by completing the square. However, in this example, we have a coefficient that is not 1, okay, for x squared. So what do we do when we're dealing with a scenario like this? So please make sure that you watch the next video tutorial that I upload. That is it, guys, and I'll see you guys on my next upload, Distance Learning with Lee, where I make learning mathematics super easy. Bye, guys.